Good afternoon, Wizards. Hope everyone is all good. We've had some very interesting movements over here in the crypto market today and yesterday as well. And we've seen some pretty good movements in line with our projections, and a movement that we've been longing for now for several days and even several weeks throughout this period of major consolidation. So I want to jump straight in, give you the BTC and XRP coverage. This will not be too long, but we will be going into further depth now on what exactly this movement means now that we've seen our wick fishing fulfilled on XRP in particular. So I just want to go off the bat straight away with BTC, which I do not want to enter short right now because we're already seeing a fairly bearish candle, but the overall bigger picture on this daily should now be screaming at exactly what is coming next. If I just quickly project this region around 8.6 to 8.5, which is the next downside target for myself, we can see upon breaking this level exactly here of this resistance, when we bursted through, we maintained the overall rejection of $9,600 as anticipated. And what we are now looking at, before even dictating whether this will or will not be a very large upside movement following from here, we have to understand that regardless of what happens next, all of our focus should be on a trendline retest alongside the $8,500 region. BTC, now that we're actually going to the weekly as a good perspective, you've seen the manipulation to the upside. You've seen the weekly candle reject this region. You've seen the third weekly candle tap this level and pull back lower, all whilst remaining way below our crucial and major resistance level of $9,600 to $9,800. Because we're below this level, as I've said the other day, we are still bearish. If we break above, we are bullish. Now, because we are seeing 3 weeklies in a row rejecting this region alongside confluencing and respecting every single crucial level, our focus can now come back to the downside. And the daily time frame is putting this into perspective greatly. You can see we had a wedge, a pendant, flag, or whatever you guys call this, whatever you want to call it. I prefer to call them wedges. We broke through to the downside. We failed to see the upside breakout and the wick fishing to match the XRP manipulation, which is a very positive sign right now that what we are going to see from this point onwards is a breakthrough. We could be looking at potential retests, but overall I am now favoring this $8,500 region massively. If I actually get this over here as well, get the ABCs going, you can see there was a nice 61.8 fib also aligning on the wick fishing with the 78.6 as well, with downside targets looking at 8.4 to 8.7. We'll get a nice intermediary of these levels and put that as an average of around $8,500. So from a 4-hour perspective, now that we've broken through, again, I didn't want to do the real wick to wick because we've already broken that as well, which also validates this even further, but I would like to drag this back to this region here. And the reason being is I want to be looking at potential pullbacks to this zone where we're rejecting and retesting both trend lines at the same time. This would provide a much larger confluence for myself, where I would then be looking to enter a short position. If I actually drag the Fibonacci up to here as well, and we identify around 9,350 all the way up to $9,400, we can start to anticipate potential short opportunities around this region. And again, doesn't need to be too complex, can be all the way down here, dragging that from there, and you're looking at almost a 3 to 0 risk to reward ratio on that setup as well. So very simple stuff. Now that it's actually moving, now that we're finally seeing that movement, I can jump back in again and give the charts my all. Because we've been consolidating for such a long time, it's just been in my best interest to be a bit more quiet than normal, because I do not want you guys trying to trade all of this manic price action. It's not very good and it's not very promising. But if we can see from this trend line here as well, also broken. No matter how you draw this, the trend lines and the counter trends have been broken, and the overall bearish channel is still forming into play. So we're very simply awaiting some form of upside burst towards this region here, where we can start to identify that short opportunity. So leaving that there and switching over to the daily just to show this a little clearer. Now that we've broken out of this wedge, you can see huge manipulation, consolidation, resistance is held, boom, retest. From there we can dictate what happens from there onwards. But I do truly believe, even if we do maintain this region, I think BTC, and I do see BTC coming back down to reject this 8,000 zone to the 777 zone yet again. So this is where we actually have that real make or break decision, and we're not really going to be worrying about the bullish bias too much for now until we see a pullback to this level at the bare minimum. From here we'll be dictating whether or not price will be closed out, and if you do enter the short, all you'll simply be be doing, if you want to actually drag this down to the 8,000 region or to my next zone, you can see the risk to reward ratio also massively increases from this as well. So what we'd be doing in this very particular situation is shorting, or at least riding the short, no matter how you want to do it. If you want to catch the short or simply spectate, if you are in the short and you are catching this wave down and we do see this come through, I'll simply be looking to take around 40 to 50% of profits off at this region because of the cruciality of breaking higher. But overall, to put this all into perspective as well, this counter trend was also broken, and since we've broken that zone, you can see we have not come back down for a retest either. So we've got several trend lines that do need some form of retest before we can really dictate what the market will do next. So overall, we are remaining with the bearish bias. Everything's worked out to plan. We've seen the XRP wick fishing, and this weekly candle looks phenomenal right now. You can see we came up, we tapped the 78.6 precisely, fell just short of the actual trend line, but again, with a bit of fixing on that line, you can see we pretty much tapped that zone anyway. So the wick fishing fulfilled, it did not actually break the wick as well. So everything is falling in line now, absolutely precisely with what's been projected. We're finally starting to see some movement out of this mess, and this could really work well in our favor. So in this situation, once profits taken, stop losses would be moved into profit as well, and we'd simply be waiting for a retest of around 9,200 before dictating what could be the next move down to the $8,000 region. Now, the reason I've said this is because I've either given, as I've said in the past two videos, $8,000 as the final support level and the final floor for 2019, or it's going to be $6,000, which we will not know until we start seeing this movement come through. So that means if $8,000 even is at the bare minimum completed and fulfilled, which we've seen over here already as the current floor for 2019, we can see the shoulders, the head, and the potential region here to come through. So it's all aligning very well. And here's where things get even more interesting. When I actually plot the Fibonacci from top to bottom over here, you can see precisely with the $8,000 zone and the $8,500 zone, there's a perfect confluence with the levels we've already preempted. So all I'll be doing here is simply extending this out to the 78.6, dragging this up to the wick region around here, maybe even keeping that a little bit lower. I do not like the zones too big like this all the time. Let's just clean these up as well. I'm preferring this dark purple theme right now. It's looking a lot cleaner, matching the vibe. But overall, no matter what happens, this is an overall target for us, and it's looking very promising. We've seen the breakout, we've seen the rejections, breakthrough, bang, boom. So putting this all into perspective, it's looking very exciting, and hopefully you guys are starting to understand now why I have been a bit quiet and why there has needed to have been some form of patience regarding this overall setup. I could very easily be the guy that just comes in and says, do you know what guys, long here, buy here, breakout, breakout, breakout. So why would I do that? Because at the end of the day, the overall bigger picture here, as you can see from the weekly, the XRP, two Fibonacci setups going here. We've got one from this region down to here, which also confluences very nicely with the 78.6, which is precisely at the peak of our resistance zone as well. So you're just seeing confluence after confluence right now, and not to mention the Fibonacci from there to there as well, just to add an extra confluence, also aligns with the 78.6 here. So we've got another case of fibception with the fib within the fib, and both of them are aligning perfectly. And even more perfectly is the fact that the extensions are almost identical as well, aligning with around 18 cents and also around 14 cents, which is very interesting to see right now. Judging from how this movement went, as I said, with the sell orders accumulated here, we have to be on our toes, because the short opportunity that could come through if we do break this support zone here will be remarkable. What we'll be looking at is a potential breakthrough and a closure below this region here, where the other 61.8 Fibonacci is around 0.2846. So all I'll be doing, nice and briefly, marking this zone out as well as a bonus region, see candle closures below this region, maybe a little retest if we're lucky to catch a short, and from there onwards we can start identifying the likes of 16 cents again, and even 18 cents, which is the first downside target. As you can see right now, we obviously do have some form of wick fishing going on. We have a nice potential reversal coming onto our hands as well. So all I'll be doing in this predicament is simply getting the Fibonacci up. 61.8 aligns with 0.3, how convenient, and also the 78.6 just above where prior wick fishing has occurred. Shoulder, head potential shoulder as well. Not to mention, now that we're back below the 30 cents region and we've seen such a strong closure below, after seeing the breakout, just shows this was a very highly likely case of wick fishing as well. So the breakthrough that was very temporary of 30 cents was invalidated for me. This was nothing extreme, and again, exactly as covered. I mean, this cannot get more perfect. The trend line tapped, we took our profit, moved stop losses to break even, got closed out at break even, but we took the majority of profits off anyway. So it's worked out very well, exactly as anticipated. We didn't see the break higher, which just means even more now there is a much higher chance of this thing just absolutely melting to the ground. And that's why a lot of my focus right now is actually on this weekly candle, because if this weekly candle just breaks through and pierces this level here, then by all means necessary we need to start gearing up for a much larger move south. So that's the predominant focus for the time being. BTC shorts, you can enter now if need be. I personally would like to just wait for this region here to come through. Even here, if you want to just get one of these up as well, you can draw a trend line over there, you can draw a trend line there, you can even draw some trend lines from here as well, which is already there, just to add the multiple confluences together. So piecing together the piece of this puzzle in particular, we can see some consolidation, a break above, and from here, if we do sustain, then by all means necessary, this is going to be a much better setup than anticipated, and a very nice risk to reward on this setup as well, which is nice. Low risk, high reward, retest of the trend line, potential retest down to here, and from there we can dictate what happens from there onwards. But I also want to mention as well how these Fibonacci targets also align with 4,500 and around 5,500 as well. Personally, I'm not too fond of this region here. If XRP does decide to go all the way down to the 14 cents region as well, then we do have to anticipate 4,400 as well, because this is simple Fibonacci abidance. If you can abide by the Fibonacci guidance and the Fibonacci law, then you can understand very quickly that whatever XRP is doing in line with the Fibonacci targets, it's very likely BTC will mirror this as well. So looking at the bare minimum, $8,500, looking at a potential retest, maybe tapping 9,200 from there before gearing up for the next trend line retest around $8,000. This is the real make or break for me, because this is the region where we're going to have to decide and be very quick and fast and decide from there onwards if we'll be maintaining this level. If we do see another closure here, lots of consolidation, we are going to be rocketing all the way towards the next Fibonacci target. So what I will do from this point onwards is get rid of that fib, keep this fib here instead, and see the huge ABC that is unfolding would then inevitably lead us to break the $10,000 region, again another psychological level, but more importantly $9,600 to $9,800. This move here, if it broke above, would then confirm the likes of 11,000 and 12,500, which would then confirm our end of year target to $16,000, sorry. So just piecing together this puzzle, keeping it very simple, very short, very brief. I just wanted to give you guys a very solid breakdown, very clear, very precise, so none of you are confused, no one's left behind, and everyone understands exactly what the overall bias here is. As you can see from the weekly, even clearer now as well, broken through, support, rejected, another rejection, boom. Touch this, retest it, see what it's saying, see if it's actually as valid as it says it is, and then understand if it does take an extra week or two, in a matter of 2 weeks we could be back down at $8,000 if this thing does not move even faster than anticipated. So that is all for now, to be honest with you. I just wanted you guys to be on top in synchronization with the market and understand how easy and simple this can be. Now obviously, on the contrary, if we do start breaking through these trend lines, there is no need to worry, because we will not be executing if this trend line gets broken anyway. And if the trend line breaks, what do we do in that situation? We buy upon the retest instead. So it's all about understanding how I actually trade and why I kind of give calls in particular manners, why I stay silent in certain scenarios. It's all for the best, because I've realized now in a market this volatile, many people do struggle with patience, many people struggle with controlling their emotions. So if I can do anything to help even in the slightest manner, I will do so. And if that means being a bit quiet sometimes and just waiting for the market to fulfill my overall plan, then I will wait to do so in that manner. And at the end of the day, if I'm continuously analyzing the charts for no reason, then I'm more likely than not going to put myself in a much more complicated perspective, I guess you could say, or even a complicated situation, even the best traders in the world, if they break their plan and try to accommodate to another need that doesn't fit their own trading strategy, it can be more detrimental to yourselves. So I will always stick to my guidelines, and this is something that I will slowly but surely teach you guys to become accustomed towards. Because BTC also didn't work out to the extra wick fishing as well, just to mention, it does just prove the validity of this level even more, and just shows that even though we've seen that huge burst higher, as the general rule of thumb goes for any market conditions, when you normally see a large pump like this, it's normally followed by some form of retracement or correction before proceeding higher. Same goes every single time. This is a good example. After hitting a bottom, we bursted higher, we rejected the zone, we then came back to retest exactly where the prior lows were before breaking and breaching even higher. So we've got our trend lines here as guidance, we've got clear and precise levels as well. Everything is working out to absolute perfection. It's now down to us and down to the market to provide that next signal. Hopefully see a nice little wick fish up to this region as well. We can even start accumulating some orders, and then from there onwards, guys, it's looking very, very promising. So all I'll be doing in this situation as well, just take note of this. This has now been broken as well. Hopefully this does maintain and stays broken, but if I just plot that out to there approximately, let's get this over here as well. Make this more precise on the 4 hour. Just wanted to show you this trend line in a bit more depth. You can see we've already breached this region, and what you're seeing right now is a break, a retest, and a potential wick fish towards this region. So dropping this down, put this back to the daily perspective, it's much more precise and much clearer, and you can understand now by actually plotting this 4 hour time frame, the alignment goes much clearer in depth with the 61.8 and the broken support level, the intraday levels of around 30 cents as well. So overall, all in all, everything is going remarkably good. I hope you guys have managed to profit off the XRP call given as well. If not, let's just sit on our hands, wait for this next movement to come through, as I do believe we're going to start seeing some downside movement to follow from here. Whilst everyone's screaming bullish, we've stuck to our guns. We have had to ride out some manipulation, which was anticipated, but overall, the bigger picture and the main target remains. So let's sit on our hands, see how this plays out, and I'll be updating you throughout the Telegram regardless anyway, and of course on Twitter as well.